Hi and welcome back. Before we go ahead and implement our authentication and login functions, we have to create our user class and also user credentials class. So the user class is basically the data or information about the actual user. So this can comprise of the ID of the user when it gets saved, the password, the username, and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and create that. ID in this case is a node, and we're going to create the username as string. And we're going to also create the password as the string. Now in this case, we're not really encrypting the password and so on, but you can use different libraries to do that. The first thing that I need to do, let's see actually what's going on, to initialize all of these things, right? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take in a username, and we're going to take in the password, and obviously going to set the username to the username and self.password to the password. All right, let's go ahead and build that, and everything is okay. Now the user over here is it simply contains the ID, username, and password. There is a class called model which is provided to you by Vapor, and the model class is actually going to make things a little bit more easier because it has already implemented methods. So let's go ahead and implement our model. Now if you jump into model, you'll see that it does have a make response, make JSON, and all the other things associated with the model. All right. Once again, we're not really using any database in this example. We're just going to hold the stuff in the memory. All right. So other thing that we need to do is we need to implement one of the required methods of the model, which takes in the node as a parameter and the context. And this information, we're just getting it from the node itself. The other things that we need to make sure that we have is the make node function. Make node function is basically responsible for returning the representation of our model, which is user in this case, in node. So this is what is going to be sent back. The other thing that we need to do is we need to implement the static prepare method and also the revert method. Now these are all for databases. Now, and since we are not really implementing any database, we're just going to leave it blank. The prepare method is basically used if you want to prepare your database, but we're not really doing anything with that. All right. So this is our user class. It inherits from the model class. Why did we inherit from the model class? Well, the model class is a good class to serve as a base class because it allows us to take use of the functions like make response and make JSON and some sort of initializers also. All right. And the model class is also using the JSON representable, serializable, string representable, and all kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and build this. So this is done. Now the next thing we can do is we can work on our user credentials class. Now the user credentials class is very similar also to the user class. The only difference is that the user credential is only responsible for holding the data that is necessary for the authorization or authentication, sorry. So basically, if you are authenticating a user with username and password, then your user credential class should provide the username and password. So let's go ahead and do that. Username, which is string, and var password, which is also string. And just like the user class, you are going to create an initializer so that both of those properties, username as well as the password, can be initialized. Now, if you are authenticating the user using only the email, then maybe this should be email and password or email and token. So it really depends that how you are authenticating the user. I think by default, if you go to the credentials, you will simply see a sessions, and one of the credentials, which is I think over here, the structure, if you go over here, which is basically the same thing, you can use like only a name or something for the credentials. All right. So if you are authenticating using a name only, then your properties will only contain the name. I will be using the username as well as the password for authentication. That is what you need to provide to get access to the services. That's why I'm using username and password. All right. So at this time, our user class is completed and our user credentials class is completed. Our next step would be to expand our user class in the form of extension and make sure that we can register the user as well as we can authenticate the user. All right. And that's pretty much it for this particular screencast. And stay tuned for more. Thank you very much.